Education is the key to a bright future.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And thank you so much, Musa, for preparing this wonderful program. Last time we enjoyed the team building that we had. We now know that we've got different colors amongst us, people with different characters,
The conversation that we're going to have today is mainly going to focus on management and what type of management style you are using.
Talking from Brazil, and I've been working on the tutoring and coaching course.
Hi everyone, I'm Tony from Switzerland. I'm very lucky to be based here in Switzerland, and I don't know, I've been so lucky to be born here. So let's say my wish is we live in a world where everyone is as lucky as we are here in Switzerland with respect to many aspects of life that is very good here.
Hi everyone. So I'm Tatiana. I live in Germany, and I am a biologist. But being in a lab wasn't very fulfilling for me. So I decided to study a master in education and to be a teacher. And that's what I do. I am a teacher in a high school here in Germany. And when I saw this project, I wanted to be part of, because I am from Colombia, and it is a country where there are a lot of differences between people. So not everyone can go to the school, and even if you go to the school, doesn't mean you are receiving a good education.
My name is Claudia Larcon. I'm from Mexico, but now I moved to Switzerland for my PhD. It's very nice to hear all your stories, and I joined Empower Me First this year. I've been helping with the chemistry course, and I love the education in the general. It's my goal of life to improve it a little bit more. And congrats, Bridget and everyone leading this project. It's amazing.
Hi everyone, I'm Irene from Kenya. I'm an accountant. I joined recently. Actually, it's less than a month ago that I joined Empower Me First. I learned about it in the internet and I applied. It's a good vision. What the team wants to do for the people in Africa is really good, and I can relate because I experience it firsthand here. So I know this is something that will make a very big difference in people's lives.
Hi everyone, my name is Halima and I'm from Nigeria. It's good to see the nice faces of everyone here, and I thank Bridget for the amazing work she has been doing.
I'm Ruki, I'm from Madagascar, and I am an ongoing student. I'm a student in sustainable tourism, and I'm also doing some communication studies. And I just joined the Empower First last month. So nice to meet you all.
Yeah, my name is Umar Sabiu. I am a mobile developer. I am also a student in Nigeria. I am studying my master's in cybersecurity in Bayero University, Kano. I've been in Empower Me First since day one. I am in ICT department, and I am so happy to be with all of you guys today.
These are the results. So Giacomo was right. It's on average 48% of brain power that is being used by diminishers. But on the flip side, we have about 90%, potentially even more, that is being used by multipliers. And so when you look at the difference between multipliers and diminishers in their attributes, you find that multipliers are empire builders. They hoard and underutilize intelligence. For this one, I've got a very practical example where I used to work for an international outsourcing company where we used to host call centers for American companies. And in one of the call centers, we used to do underwriting for, like, in the back office for loan underwriting. And there was this young man who graduated from university and was put in this underwriting department. And within a couple of weeks, he was able to understand the US federal policies and procedures in mortgage servicing and real estate. He was able to understand the system. He was able to understand pretty much everything and could pretty much lead himself at the end of 3 months. And he worked in this role for a year. And because he was so smart, he used to bring the good ideas on how best he could streamline the reporting. So he would create reports, which he would submit to the boss, and then the boss would then collect those reports and submit them to onshore, to the client, stuff that he wouldn't even have to do. So when it was time for this young man to have an opportunity to work in a different department, which would give him more responsibility and will potentially grow his income, his manager refused to let him go, and he discredited him to the other manager in the other department to say he's a bit slow, he's this, and he's only joining the department because you're offering him better money, otherwise he's not interested. And that's how this young man lost the job. He stayed in that department. Why? Because the manager wanted him to continue helping him do his job. So instead of attracting and optimizing this young man's talent, what else can you learn? What else can you do? He was hoarding and underutilizing talent. Similar situation to what Carolina had shared in the introductory part of our conversation. And it's a terrible experience where you know that you're capable of so much, but then you're being held back by a manager that doesn't feel they can trust you enough to actually have more leg room in the way you do things. You find that multipliers are liberators. They create space for best thinking, while diminishers are tyrannical in their approach. They create stress, and that stress prevents people from bringing forward their best thinking. And there's a difference between an intense environment and a tense environment. Intense is good, keeps people on their toes, keeps people thinking and looking for solutions, ideating. But if it's tense, tension means we are struggling and we can't breathe. And that can stop you from performing at your best capacity. Diminishers are know-it-alls. They tell people what to do. Hey, I need you to do A, B, C, D. No, boss, I was thinking, hey, I am the boss here. I'm the one with a PhD from the University of Mars, So I definitely know better. But the multipliers will challenge, will extend and stretch people. They'll actually put them at a position where they're able to stretch and do more with their thinking power. Something similar to what Richard shared, where his manager would put him in a very intense situation so he can fiddle his way around, and eventually, because he's an intelligent human being, he was able to learn quickly rather than being told what to do all the time. So you stop using your brain power and you depend on the brain power of your leadership. Diminishers are found to be decision makers, but multipliers create room for debate. They walk into a room and they see light bulbs and they will debate the difficult situation, and the smart people will come up with the solutions to those issues. Diminishers can micromanage every detail rather instead of instilling ownership and accountability to people, as multipliers do when they invest in people. So this is the fundamental difference between a multiplier and a diminisher.
Yeah, I think if you are a leader and you are kind of like selfish and you don't want to share the load, I would say you are a diminisher, because really you're not helping those you are working with to really maybe try to explore themselves. You need to give them challenges. You need to allow them to experience what you experience as well as a leader. I would say you're a diminisher if you can't delegate. You're kind of like selfish, so you need to share the load with others. That's how you get feedback. That's how you also get ideas as a leader as well. Thank you.
So the description here is that we have two dramatically different leaders. So there's on one end of the spectrum, we have a multiplier. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a diminisher. But of course, somewhere in between, there's what we call accidental diminishers or accidental multipliers. So these are people who are so unaware that they're actually diminishing the people around them. And usually it's because they mean well. In situational leadership, there is this concept where while one person would say, for example, you, Giacomo, you would say, my leader is very present. He or she constantly gives me advice and guidance on what to do. They never leave me alone. And you would tell your friends the relationship that you have with your leader is very close. Why? Because you've just joined the organization and you need direction. But then we have Tatiana, who's been in that role for 7 years. And the same leader uses the same leadership style with two different people in two different development phases. So while you are praising your leader, Tatiana is going home to tell her family about how she works with a micromanager, a terrible boss who doesn't give her enough legroom to actually do what she thinks she needs to do to bring her best thinking forward. But the leader means well for both of them. He's actually thinking as though he's giving them support. But because there's the lack of awareness, you find that one person is being multiplied while the other person is being diminished.
You begin to look at yourself and try to see what kind of a leader are you. Have you been multiplying others, or you've been diminishing? Of which, as you have said, that I think what's important in leadership, I think that you might need to get to know the people that you work with very well, know how to treat individuals maybe separately. You know what this person needs from you, or what kind of relationship you need to build with the next person. You know, the way I build relationships with the other person, it could be different with the other person as well. So I think it's a matter of us trying to strike the balance and learning the team members that we work with.
And self-awareness, also awareness of the people that you actually work with, is the baseline to building or applying the best approach in your leadership skills. So when you talk about debate makers, what we have on the other side of the contrast is decision makers. Decision makers just decide to say, we're going to do this, we're going to spend this much money, we're going to go in this direction. The reason I'm making this decision is because I'm the leader here. And the reason I'm the leader is because I'm smart than everybody else in here. So I know better. So you don't have any other ideas to bring forward. But a good leader would actually not even come up with any ideas. They would debate to say, we have this challenge. What can we do about it? And you'll be amazed at the light bulbs that will go out in the room, because we are working with super intelligent beings who are able to process the problem and ideate the solution and actually come up with a proper strategy that can be implemented. And at the end of 6 months working with a leader that actually forces people to debate and get challenged, people become smarter and their intelligence expands. And that means they'll be able to contribute even more to the organization and the overall purpose of why you exist and your vision and mission and things like that, because they feel super committed to the role, because they feel they are part of the process. But rather is to give people the opportunity to showcase their ideas. There's one that Tony has brought up: dismissed suggestions without explaining why. I see this a lot of times. People bring this up whenever we have this sort of conversation. When you have a manager who dismisses you without an explanation. So maybe we can hear from you, Tony. Why do you think this particular manager was dismissing suggestions without giving you a valid reason why? When you thought about it, what did you conclude?
Well, something it has to do with ego. Sometimes it has to do with ego. I don't know. Yeah. What else could it be? I don't know. Maybe they don't think enough about the validity of their approach versus another one. And I've heard, maybe one of the dumbest argument I've heard is like, oh, because I worked on it and I spent time on it, so this is what we're going to do. Even though, well, it was probably not the best way to do things. What else? True. Yeah, basically, I think when somebody makes the effort to make a suggestion and then argue why, explain why they think this approach is valid, the other side needs to at least address those arguments and say, okay, I see that it's valid, but, or this is not valid and this is why. But when they use power to just move ahead, well, then it discourages suggestion and disengages people, and it's a recipe for disaster, I guess.
True. I mean, who in here has got kids? Do we have any moms and dads in here?
I have to.
I'm a mom.
Okay. So, Konyam, also Natasha, everybody has a kid. So, I'll go with Natasha. So, Natasha takes her child to the school bus, which is at the edge of the driveway of their house. So he takes her, holds her hand to say, "Okay, let's go to the school bus." She walks her to the school bus. He gets on the school bus. She goes, and she comes back later in the day. So one morning, Natasha's child is like, "Mommy, can we race to the bus, and we'll see who's gonna win?" Then Natasha's like, "Yeah, cool, let's do it." So everybody on your marks, get set, go. And in that moment, Natasha completely forgets that she's a grown woman. And she sprints to the bus, leaving the little child behind. So she gets to the bus and then she starts to celebrate. I won, you lost. You're a loser. And then the kid is like, "Okay, mommy, you won, big deal. It was just a stupid race." And so the child gets on the bus and Natasha goes about her business. And then the next day, she's doing the same, it's a routine, walking to the bus, and then Natasha suggested this time, can we race to the bus? And then the child is like, "No thanks, I'm okay, no need, I'll walk." Why? Because she knows that mom always wins, never allows me to win. So no matter what I do, she's just going to remind me how short my legs are, how small I am, how weak I am, and how I'm so limited in so many ways, and how she's going to boast about her capability. And so when you have managers that are dismissive, usually they are constantly trying to validate themselves. There's so many different types of accidental diminishers. And I just wanted to just mention just a few. There is people who are rescuers. We already talked about this. These are people who are constantly jumping to the aid of their staff, limiting their progress because they don't ever stretch. They're accidental diminishers who are perfectionists. And a perfectionist is a person where you're working with them and you write a report, for example, and they'll send it back to say, "You need to do A, B, C, D, and G." Then you do that, then you send it to them again. They're not satisfied because even in their mind, they're not sure exactly the standard of perfection. And in the process, you find that you start to diminish the person that you're working with. So it's always good to come up with a standard of how you want the product to come out. There are people who are idea guys, a manager who is always thinking of ideas. And so he thinks of this idea, he thinks of this idea, thinks of this idea, and then you're just swamped with this man's thought process and you don't even know how to prioritize. Then similar to that one, there's the accidental diminisher of being a strategist. I once worked for a company where we changed the strategy 4 times in 1 week, literally. He comes up with this idea, and he would, sugarcoat it by saying, "You need to be agile. We need to develop an agile environment," which is true. But then strategists, they build doubt in the minds of people that they manage because at the end of the day, it looks like the manager is not sure what he's doing. Whereby I joined Konyam's department and he says, "Hello, Musa, thank you so much for joining our department. If you went through our interview process, recruitment process to this point where you have a contract, that means you're very smart. And we run at 230 kilometers per hour. So whether you have legs, whether you can't see, I personally don't care. I just need you to start to hit the ground running and run at the same speed as everybody else in this department. And if you're incapable of doing that, there is the door, because I have no time to handhold anyone in my team." That can be very harsh, but there are some managers who do that because they mean well. They feel as though they are challenging, but it really breaks the spirit of people who are new or who haven't fully understood the culture of the organization. So Irene says, I once worked with a perfectionist. The experience was not good. Do you mind just like in just a brief comment, how did you experience this? Just a brief one, working with a perfectionist.
Well, it was my supervisor. I was in a branch department, and he was at the headquarter office. So I would have to send him some reports before they go to the donors. So one day I send a report, and he's like, "This is not even close to what I want." So you do it again, and it's like, not yet. So it was so hard for me and he didn't have the time to come where I was and show me what he really wanted. It was really hard. It really took me almost 6 months to get it right. I really struggled, but it built me. The experience was not good. It's hard. I wish there was a better way for him to put the message across. Just shut me.
Your development was rooted in trauma.
Sure.
I'm sorry about that. Okay, so clearly there is a very huge difference between diminishers and multipliers. And we're not saying that diminishers are fundamentally terrible human beings. It's just that they are managers who follow an approach that doesn't necessarily work anymore. And these are genuine good people who do things a certain way. And what we need to do now is come to a full understanding of ourselves, where we are on the spectrum between multiplier and diminisher, so that we have the capacity to actually hold ourselves whenever if we find ourselves tipping to the diminishing side. So some of the conversations that you would have in a complete multiplier effects training is that we would, sorry, let me just project this. Yes, we would have conversations like in the do less and challenge more, decrease accidental diminishing traits, ask the right questions, spark better thinking, discover and utilize genius, capture latent intelligence, learn from mistakes, create a safe space, do not beat people down whenever they err, challenge people to stretch, define mission impossible, demand rigor through debate, make smarter decisions, create space for others and play fewer chips, invest in others. So this is basically what you kind of like need to align yourself with if you're going to be an active multiplier. So at the end of this, when you do an introspection of yourself and how you manage, and being a multiplier is not only limited to the professional setting, even in your personal house, your friends, and whatever society you belong to. And we were to ask them, or to ask yourself, how would you answer this? Are you a genius yourself, or are you a maker of geniuses?
Education is the key to a bright future.